so excited to be here with author Sahil Bloom. Hi.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, you're so much more than an author, but just of the moment.
Of the moment.
Of the moment.
It feels nice to have like a single thing that I can say now. You know how
Right.
hard it is going to like a cocktail party and people are like, what do you do?
Right.
And you don't have a clear answer.
Right.
It's the worst.
No.
It's so nice now that I can just say.
It's so nice. But I mean, we know no one's just an author unless they're a writer, in which case, that's amazing. But you do so many things. So tell us a little bit about, how you decided to write this book.
Yeah, I started my whole career in finance. I was like very much the finance bro, just like working my way up, doing the things that you're told are impressive. And if I'm going to like go back and really be honest about it, a lot of that was grounded in this sort of insecurity that I had, this feeling that I could chase some amount of external affirmation that would fix the internal problem that I had, that I didn't feel impressive. And you're like, in society, great way to fix that is to go and get external accolades, achievements, make money, status, fancy things, fix the internal problem. And I played that game for many, many years, for 7 years, only to find that it actually doesn't work. You cannot find an external solution to an internal problem. And so I decided to step off the track and do something completely different. I went down this much more entrepreneurial path. I started writing, I started sharing, started a newsletter in 2021. And that has somehow turned into this ecosystem now that reaches millions of people. The book is now out in the world. And it was all a result of just deciding to reject some of these defaults and step off the path and try to carve my own.
I love it. And we start every episode with this question. So I'm curious what you have to say. What is your favorite romantic gesture? And this is for someone to do for you.
Oh, that's a great question for someone to do for me. Can I give an embarrassing one?
Please.
Refilling the soap dispenser.
Oh.
So I am big, like my love language is acts of service. And there have been several occasions where like I've gone to go wash my hands in our sink and the soap dispenser was filled. And I literally, like I have my feelings of love towards my wife for having taken the time, because like we have a young kid. Like, the fact that she took the time and went and did that means a lot. And it's this tiny little gesture that actually means so much to me. And it reminds me of that important fact of like those tiny little shows of appreciation that you do towards your partner. You may think they're tiny as you do them, but the impact it can have on the other people other person may be enormous.
Okay, I have 2 follow-up questions to that. The first is what kind of soap?
This is an embarrassing one. This is dish soap at our.
You know what? You need dish soap. You're washing a lot of, if you have a kid, you're washing things all the time. Your hands are bleeding from how much you're washing. Okay. And the second question is, are you communicating that to her every time that you're appreciative?
I have a rule that when you appreciate something about someone, you let them know right then and there. Shortly after my son was born, so he's 2.5 now, I read a statistic that 80% of married couples say that their relationship got worse in the year after having their child.
Oh, that's a fact.
And that terrified me. And what I realized was that lack of appreciation is where relationships go to die. And you can avoid that by vocalizing the appreciation. But you have to remind yourself to do it every single time you feel it. It has to literally become a rule, like a trigger point. And so I started doing it with my wife, where when I felt these tiny things like the soap dispenser, whatever it might be, I would vocalize it. Then it started bleeding out into all of my friendships and relationships. And it's kind of an amazing habit because you realize that you create all these touch points with people that you care about just from like the trigger of, I thought something nice about the person, I'm going to let them know right then. And it ends up building this like really nice momentum in all of these relationships that lasts a long time. And
not only that, but then your wife wants to do that again and again. It's like you are getting what you want by telling her that you appreciate it. My husband is obsessed with this brand Just Iced Tea. And if they're listening, please send us Just Iced Tea. He'll be so happy. And sometimes I'll be at Whole Foods checking out and it's always right next to the checkout. So sometimes I'll grab one and I'll bring it home and I call it his treat. I'm like, I got you a treat. And he's so appreciative. Every time he's like, he couldn't be happier. And so it makes me want to get it again and again and again. But if there's a day where he doesn't say, he just like, he gets jaded and he's like, oh, I just, my Just Iced Tea in the fridge and doesn't say anything. I'm like, now I don't want to get it for a little while. So it's so important. It's so important.
It is really true.
Vocalize.
The vocalizing it in both directions, recognizing those tiny things that you appreciate. It does reinforce the pattern of then wanting to go do it. I love that. My version of it to my wife is taking out the boxes on box day without being asked.
Oh, you have to do that as a man.
As a man,
I mean, you have no choice.
I mean, this is like one of my masculine duties in the household. It's not particularly masculine, but like making sure that I take the trash out on the trash day and the boxes out on box day.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I miss that, I have literally sprinted from my office. Like I hear the trash truck and I'm like, oh my God, sprint. Like, I'm gonna go get this thing to make sure I get it done.
You got to do it. I love it. Let's talk a little bit more. So I want to get into the book because there is a part of the book that I want to go deeper about. So obviously the 5 types of wealth, you talk about time, social, mental, physical, financial. And a lot of my listeners are single. And I wonder, can you still achieve relationship wealth while you're single? Because a lot of women now are making a choice like, I don't care if I find a partner, So how can you achieve that relationship wealth if you're not what society deems, correct?
I think one of the most important concepts, broadly speaking, of the entire book is that no one else gets to decide what you want your life to look like. You can decide your own definition of success in all of these different areas. And frankly, you will never feel successful unless you create your own definition of success. And so when it comes to social wealth, what society deems as relationship, wealthy in relationships matters none. You get to decide when you feel filled, when you feel like your cup is full. And that will differ across different types of people. If I'm an extreme introvert, to feel like I have relationship wealth may mean having one dear friend that I can call in the middle of the night. And I might feel like my cup is filled. If I'm an extreme extrovert, I might need hundreds of friends. It's just a completely different plane that you're measuring on. So for someone else to get to decide that for you makes no sense. They're applying their map to your reality. So for anyone out there that's listening to this, the whole idea should be identifying what will make you feel full from a relationship wealth standpoint, and then trying to build against that, taking actions to go and build that, to compound it in your own life. If that ends up being a traditional romantic relationship that makes you feel like you have that depth of connection, great. If it ends up being a group of friends that just make you feel alive, also great. It doesn't have to come from just the most traditional source.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, but it's so hard. As someone, as people in traditional relationships, right? Don't you feel like you have to fight to not project onto your single friends that you kind of know what would make them happy and it's the same thing,
Yeah, I just, I would say over and over again in my own life, I have just found that so many of our problems come from trying to apply someone else's map of reality to our terrain.
Yeah.
It applies to your career for sure. Like when you think about what am I supposed to want, you're just like, okay, this version of someone else's life that they're living, that they're showing me the highlight reel of on Instagram, I'm now trying to compare my life to that. It makes me feel bad about what I'm doing. It's like the best way to kill something good is to compare it to something else. Mm-hmm. So when you constantly spend your time looking around at the things other people are doing the way they're living, and it makes you feel bad about how you're living, that's not serving you in any way. The reality is you need to think about how you actually feel. If you do feel like you want that romantic relationship and that's going to make you feel more connected, great, pursue that, take actions, go meet people. But if not, you don't need to allow other people's judgments or other people's perspectives to impact how you are actually operating on a daily basis.
I agree with you, but I feel like now more than ever, it is so hard to do that.
Why now more than ever?
Because of social media, right? Because we're seeing everyone, like, for example, if you were someone that went back and forth on wanting to have kids, you're on social media, and let's say you're on the rights, the good side of social media where you're seeing like how fun people's kids are and, this and that, then all of a sudden you might not be able to drown out the noise and actually hone in on what you want, Yeah,
do the, there's this method called 3 good things where at the end of every day you write down 3 good things about what your life actually looked like on that day. And it's supposed to be this whole powerful exercise for gratitude about what you have, so that you stop focusing on all the things that you don't have and you hone in on the things you do. Go through that exercise. Like if you start to feel like you are not enough in whatever area, it could be relationships or these other areas, make sure you center yourself on all of the things that you do have. There's also just this recognition that no matter what, the things you prayed for in life become the things that you complain about. Over and over again. I mean, my own journey, like a few weeks ago, I was in my office working on something, really focused on something for the book launch. My son comes barging in, knocking stuff over, terrorizing the back of my office, making noise. And I started having this really annoyed train of thought. Like, why is he doing this? Just complaining. Doesn't he know to stop? All these things. And in that moment, I caught myself and I took myself back 4 years to when my wife and I were in the middle of this 2-year infertility struggle. I had prayed every single night that we would one day have a healthy child. And there I was in that moment, complaining about the exact thing that I had prayed for. And it was a reminder to me of that exact fact, that sometimes in life, the things you pray for become the things that you complain about, if you let them. Over and over again, the house you prayed for becomes the house you complain is too small. The car you wanted becomes the car you can't wait to trade in. The engagement ring you thought was perfect becomes the one you can't wait to upgrade. And no matter what, you are going to have that tendency. So stop allowing yourself to think that just with X, I'm all of a sudden going to be happy, everything's going to be perfect. Because the reality is, it's just going to be another thing on the journey, another mirage that you've created for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it has to come from you being mentally well, honestly.
Yeah. Viktor Frankl said, happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. Meaning it can't be an external thing that you go get. It has to come from within.
It's so true. And I totally agree with you about that. And we'll talk about that in a sec, but we went through a fertility journey. And at first I was like, this makes me so obsessed with the newborn stage. I was obsessed with my son. I was like, I'll breastfeed till the end of time. Like, I'll do it all. And now, a year later, not that I get annoyed with him. He's not in his terrible twos just yet, thank God. But, sometimes I'm like, oh, it is annoying. Not he's annoying, but it is annoying to wake up, when he wakes up at 6:30 this morning, or there's hours and hours until I can start doing work and this and that. And then it's like, no, but, I want this. And this is happening for me because I hoped for it. I prayed for it. I put the work in, and it helps you be in gratitude. So I really like those, what is it? 3
good things.
3 good things. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. It's also just a recognition that we, over and over again, and this applies to my single friends, my married friends, everyone, we think that we can find all things in one person. And that is going to lead you off a cliff.
Oh, totally.
You are never going to find all things in one person. Like, I have friends who are in a great relationship and they'll come to me and they're like, I'm second guessing it. Like, okay, why? Like, well, I just don't know if she is, this level of intellect and this level of beauty, like creating this list of like 20 things that he wants to find in this person. I'm like, dude, you don't need to find every single one of those things in one person, because you are not all of those things to her.
Right.
And so we shouldn't create this expectation that our romantic partner has to check all of 100 boxes for our life. Your romantic partner is a person that you can grow with across the different seasons of your life. It's someone that you can change with, be dynamic with. You are going to have completely different marriages over the course of one marriage. The marriage you had before your kids were born is fundamentally different than the marriage you have when your kid is 14 months old. It's going to be fundamentally different than when your kids are teenagers. It's going to be different than when your kids are out of the house. That is a person that you need to be able to grow with, be dynamic with. That doesn't mean that person is all things to you at all times.
No. Even with friends too. One friend can't be everything to you either. But that's why you have your husband or your wife, and you have your best friends, and you have to have a full kind of roster of people in your life that are, someone you go to for advice, someone you go to, like, you have to know your friends' limits. Like, you have, not now, but like we had our going out friend, right? We had our funny friend, we had our like whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm not going to the funny friend for the really serious advice.
Exactly.
Like, not to do that.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense.
It's going to make them uncomfortable. So you talked about, growing with a partner. You met your wife when you were 14.
Yes.
Please tell us everything.
I met my wife. I was a sophomore in high school. She was a freshman. And I tried to hit on her on a school trip to the UN, actually, right near here, and got completely rejected. And slowly worked my way in, and we started dating a little bit later that year. And it's just, it's fascinating to reflect on now, because those type of stories don't really happen anymore. Like, this is old school, the whole like high school sweethearts, you stay together, you get married, we have children now. The most incredible part about it is that idea of growing in love. Falling in love is very easy. Growing in love is very hard. Falling in love is that social media. It's the stuff you see. It's the beautiful Instagram filtered moments, the fancy vacations, the dinners, all of those things. And growing in love is the crawling through the mud. It's the challenging conversations. It's the shifts across the different seasons. It's those transition points where you are fundamentally different people. It's the communicating across all of that. And when you find someone that you can really grow in love with, that ends up being your person. My wife and I have had to do that in order to last as long as we have, because I would say that she has been a remarkably consistent and kind person, and very value-oriented throughout our journey. I have not been. I hid so much from the world behind that mask of insecurity for the better part of 30 years. And the fact that my wife was there to navigate that with me, to help me, to guide me through to the other side of it, to kind of open up to who I really was, I just feel grateful for her presence in my life.
That's really beautiful. I have to ask for the astrology girlies, when's your birthday and when is hers?
January 5th. She is April 5th.
Oh my God, a Capricorn and an Aries.
Yes.
Wow. And you're both the 5th.
Both the 5th. And we started dating on May 5th.
Oh, wow. Okay. Lots of fives in your life. You need to like buy a lotto ticket and do 5, 5, 5, 5, 5.
Exactly.
What do you think, like, was the most helpful thing that you guys did together to ensure that you grew on the same path? And did you ever break up and get back together?
We never broke up.
Not even college?
Not even in college. It's funny. We never planned that far in advance. And that became a feature rather than a bug. I think most people, so when I was leaving for college, I was a D1 athlete. So I got a scholarship to go play baseball in college. Everyone was like, you got to break up because like D1 athlete, you're going to have all these, girls, opportunities. And I hate, just fundamentally as a human being, when everyone tells me something, my natural tendency is to dig my heels in the other direction. That's how I'm wired. I just want to reject what everyone's telling me. And so my initial reaction was like, no, screw you. I'm going to do what I want. And so we decided, we were like, let's give it a shot. I'm going to go to college. We'll go through the fall. I'll come back for Thanksgiving. If we feel differently about each other, we can talk. And that first fall went by. We were still great. She came and visited. The first year went by, the second year. And so then it was like, okay, now we're like, there's momentum to it. But we never said, hey, we're going to date throughout all of college. It was just like, let's continue to make sure that we have conversations.
Right, we're happy.
Be there. Yeah, we're happy. We love each other. She was my best friend. It was more than anything else. It was just like the one person who really knew me. It was the one person that I hid things from my parents. I hid things from my sister. My best friends didn't know the full version of me. She really knew me. It was the only person in my life. And there's so much power in that from a relationship standpoint. I would say the one thing that really transformed our relationship, and it kind of sounds silly, is a simple communication thing as it relates to handling relationship conflict. I came across this idea of, it's a method. It's called helped, heard, or hugged. And the idea is when someone comes to you with a problem, you ask, do you want to be helped, heard, or hugged? Helped is like, I'm going to deconstruct the problem and try to help you. Heard is just listen. And then hugged is comforting touch. that as a simple concept transformed our relationship, because for me, it allowed me to actually understand how she wanted me to show up during any conflicts or challenges we were facing together or that she was facing in her life. My natural tendency is to be a fixer.
Well, I was just going to say all men want to just fix the problem.
Yeah, I think most men probably do. I definitely fell into that bucket. And it would lead to like a perpetuation of whatever problem we were facing or whatever issue she was facing. And just understanding that like, okay, the way that I want to show up in this situation is not the way that she needs me to show up for her in this situation. And allowing myself to like break the pattern in my mind that it doesn't matter what I want in this relationship, in this situation. It doesn't matter what I want to do. It matters how I can be most effective in helping solve this problem that we are facing. It's like flip the me versus you of a conflict into us versus whatever this problem is.
Right.
How do we best deal with that?
Yeah. No, that's a good one. And I feel like more men could take a page out of the Helped, Heard, or Hugged book. I also think that hugging solves like 90% of your problems, but people don't realize it. Like if you're in a fight next time with your partner, just hug them. See what happens. Just see what happens.
My wife says that over and over again. Her love language is touch.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me because I don't experience love necessarily in that way. I don't know if there's some like deep-seated trauma that I've like been ignored. I mean, my parents are extremely loving and hug me.
You're a Capricorn, so I can tell you about it later.
Okay, yeah, I'll hear about that later then. But it's so funny to me that like it really is the way that we could solve 99% of our relationship conflicts would just be like give the person a hug in those moments, show up for them. Humans at the end of the day are relationship creatures. It is, I mean, scientifically, relationships are going to be the single greatest predictor of your health and happiness as you age. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, this amazing study done over the course of 85 years, they found that the single greatest predictor of physical health at age 80 was relationship satisfaction at age 50. So what better reason do we need to invest in that one thing that's fundamentally going to impact the entire course of our lives?
Yeah, it's the biggest decision you'll ever make. It's crazy. I just had a really good question.
While you think on it,
tell me.
The biggest decision you'll ever make. I think that like I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, I write that in the book.
Yeah.
I like that exact phrase. And I am almost rethinking it in real time because I think what it creates is this intimidation and this overthinking tendency when it comes to that decision. So if I say who you choose to partner with in life is the single greatest, biggest decision you'll ever make, I am going to be so terrified of making that decision.
To make the decision. That's a good point.
And the reality is that a great marriage, a great partnership is not a single decision. It is the thousands, millions of decisions and actions that follow it. A great marriage is not a great marriage because of who you chose to marry. It's because of how you showed up on a daily basis over the thousands of days that follow it.
That's
what
so
you chose
true.
to do. You can marry the perfect person, but if you show up as an asshole every single day after that, it's not going to be a good marriage.
Right.
I can guarantee it. And so I think that we actually need to reframe that in our own minds. And for anyone out there that's single or starting to think about that big decision, maybe you're in a relationship and you're intimidating yourself, recognize that you actually have the power to make the decision the right one by the actions that you follow it with.
Right. Or at least like have that connection, have the fundamentals, but then you need to put in the work. Like everyone's always asking, my parents have a really good marriage and everyone's like, oh my God, like how their goals, how do they get there? No one gets anywhere unless you go through so much in the in-between. Like no one starts a marriage and it being goals, right? It has to become goals. What I was going to ask you is you mentioned, things that you were being like secretive about or whatever. If you're comfortable sharing, what kind of things are we talking about? Are they like little things like knowing whether you wanted to stay on the track of finance, or is it more things like, because for people who are debating if they want to stay with a person who's maybe going through something similar,
Yeah. No, I mean, when I talk about this, what I'm referring to is the fact that I was not comfortable with who I was as a human being.
Yeah.
And what that meant was my core values of being a loving, kind, generous human being were not actually being borne out in how I was acting. I was acting like the way a finance bro should act. I was like caring only about making money, about status, about nice fancy things. I mean, at the time, I thought that I didn't want to have kids because I thought that kids were a distraction from the really important thing, which was like being famous, making a bunch of money, making partner, all of these things. And in terms of hiding things from the world, what I was hiding was who I truly was. Like I was hiding my actual core values, being a like kind of goofy, quirky, weird person behind this like act of who I thought I should be. The first act was like the athlete guy. Like I thought I had to be the like tough kind of bully athlete. And so I was like not that nice to people in high school. I like feel a lot of shame associated with that, frankly, now in life. And it took me getting comfortable with who I was as a human and that I could just open up and just be myself to strip away all of those kind of external acts that I was playing at different times of my life.
Yeah.
And that just, frankly, like that just takes a lot of inner work and introspection to just get comfortable that like, I'm not going to be for everybody. That's fine. I don't try to need to play some other act. I can just be authentic to who I am as a person.
Yeah. And by the way, I think everyone feels bad about things they did in high school. So like, hopefully you know that you're not alone there.
I definitely know that I'm not alone there. Although like, look, I went to my 10-year high school reunion in 2019 and I was on my way to it and I was texting my wife. She wasn't coming because we were a year apart. And I was just saying like, I am nervous about going because the last time I saw these people, the person who I was is not who I am. And what they remember of me is so dislocated from who I know I am. And that makes me sad that like there was just a very different person. What you find is that you get to the thing and everyone is sort of like that. And like the people who were already comfortable with who they were, the like quirky kids in high school have thrived and they continue to be quirky. And then everyone else has sort of gone through whatever transformation. But I did feel this level of shame of the fact that I hid so much about who I was and just had told myself this story that I wasn't capable, that I wasn't enough, that I needed to be something different than I was.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that so many people going to any high school reunion are ready to accept that people have changed. You know what I mean? Otherwise, that's just like a gossipy loser person who is rude. But no, I get that. And then another thing that you said, which I really resonated with, is that your spouse should always take priority over your birth family. I wonder, are you religious?
Not particularly.
Okay, because I feel like in a lot of religions, I'm Jewish and I have friends of all different religions, and I feel like if someone is in a religious family, the lines can get blurred for sure. Like for example, a lot of my friends who are married to men, the man the man is like a mama's boy or whatever. He tends to, especially if he's religious, tends to kind of not prefer his family, but,
defer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This one is really important to me and it's informed by my own experience with my parents. So my mom is from India, born and raised in Bangalore. My dad is white Jewish from the Bronx. And when my dad wanted to marry my mom, his father said no. And told him that he had to choose between his family and my mom. And my dad walked out the door and never saw his family again.
I just got the chills. Oh my God.
To this day, I never met my dad's parents. He has 3 siblings I've never met. I have first cousins out there in the world that I've never met. And that one decision that he made to choose love has had ripple effects into my entire life and the way that the two of them have showed up as parents to be as supportive as they were to my sister and I. And in the legacy of my understanding of what it means to truly love someone. My parents have been married 42 years. They're the most incredible couple I've ever seen, a role model for my wife and I. And over and over again, I have seen conflicts in people's marriages and lives get created by allowing your birth family and your birth family relationship to supersede your romantic partner and your new relationship. That person has to be your partner in life and you are on the same side. And sometimes that's going to be painful and that's going to hurt. The first time that I see this popping up for everyone is when you're getting married, the wedding, because there is something that happens biologically where the groom's mother starts to feel like her son is being taken away by this new woman. And there is a weird psychological, biological thing that happens there. That means that the groom's mother loves to create tension around the wedding. I had a friend reach out to me recently telling me that his Muslim mother was creating a bunch of troubles for their marriage in the construct of having alcohol there or not. And he was asking me for advice on what I should do. And it was creating tension with his wife and his mom. And I said, look, you get one chance at this. You have to take your wife's side in this. Because if you don't, 10 years from now, your wife is going to remember that. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
That you weren't on her team when it came to this. This is your team. This is your new team in life. When you choose to marry someone, you are saying, we are teammates in this bet. We are the two captains of this team going forward. And if you don't reinforce that with your actions and how you show up in that relationship versus the one with your birth family, and you don't create that clear boundary, it is going to be something that has negative ripple effects in your life.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, obviously, I don't know your grandparents, but I can't even imagine like how they must feel. I mean, like, how could you ever not support your kid loving someone? It's just the craziest thing to me. But I mean, that's a whole
1980. I mean, maybe things were a little different in the 1980s, but I think more than anything, his dad passed away many years ago. His mom is still alive somewhere, and we often think about whether we would go visit her. She has great grandchildren now that she doesn't know. I think that when you avoid hard conversations, you are taking on a debt, and that debt has to be repaid with interest at some point in the future. Time doesn't heal anything when it comes to relationships. It just makes it worse. And so in this context, that is a big debt that has ballooned over 40 years now, to the point where there's just so much water under the bridge. It's so hard to solve a problem after that long.
Yeah, no, I agree. But maybe they'll be walking into Barnes & Noble and see your book. And
I would be shocked if one of his siblings or someone hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
And I write about that story at the beginning, so I'm sure they've come across it.
Totally. Going through IVF is really hard on a marriage, or just fertility struggles in general. I went through IVF. I don't know that you necessarily did, but you struggled to conceive. What is something, I recently was talking to a girlfriend about how going through IVF, people don't realize sex is not, like, you can't even really be physical with your partner during that time. And it's one of the biggest challenges for a relationship that I believe you either get so much stronger afterwards or that's it. You're done. What's something that you and your wife were able to do during that time to kind of keep it together and not want to rip each other's heads off and stay united?
I think the most challenging part of fertility struggles is this monthly buildup and letdown that you start going through, like the big buildup to the one event of hoping that it worked, and then the letdown of it not. And for us, it was 2 years of that feeling. And when you have that feeling of the buildup and then the letdown, and it starts to become over and over again, you start to lose hope in it. Like, it's just not going to work. You need to find, okay, well, like, what's our life going to look like? It's so different than the life that we envisioned for ourselves. And that creates just a lot of strain. And if you are not present during those periods of strain, if your energy is not there, that's a really dangerous thing. And our struggle was at sort of the peak of my own struggle as a person, in this like path that I was on versus the path that I felt I should be on, being so different. And, when it comes to fertility struggles in particular, this is a burden that women are sort of forced to bear. Like, societally, we just assume that it's the woman. In hindsight, in our case, I would say it was me, because we made this big change in our lives. We decided to leave where I left my job. In 45 days, I left my job. We moved 3,000 miles to live closer to both of our sets of parents. And within a couple of weeks of making that decision, we found out that my wife was pregnant. And that, I'm not religious, but if there was one moment in my life where I felt like God winked at us, it was that. That when things come into alignment, when you take an action, you make a decision, everything falls into place as it should. showing up, being able to be there and present with energy, vocalizing the appreciation during those challenging times, that is all you can do. And it is the most powerful thing in the world when you do it. So if you're going through that struggle right now, that is where you find your strength to continue to endure.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because things can like live in your body that are holding you back. And something like being in a bad job, people don't realize how much that affects them physically. It affects you mentally, obviously. It affects you physically too, in so many ways. It can make you sick. It's like when you're in the wrong relationship. I remember with an ex, I had horrible chronic neck pain.
Wow.
And I broke up with this guy and my neck never hurt again. I swear to God.
Wow.
I mean, until I started breastfeeding. But like, really,
Yeah.
I mean, things really. So I think you did something that was so in alignment with what you needed to do that it lifted whatever was going on from out of your body, which is amazing.
And it was all at once. I mean, I was drinking 6-7 nights a week. I was not sleeping a lot. I was stressed. I mean, there was all of this stuff that was sort of built up, pent up. And I mean, scientifically, stress levels, all of those things impact fertility. So it's not a stretch actually for me to think that there's a meaningful connection here in the it's just hard for me to ignore. It was like a few weeks. And then all of a sudden, with no new treatment, there was nothing new that happened. It was just this change. Like when things come into alignment, everything falls into place as it should.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, the last thing I want to discuss real quick, or just get your take on something that I loved that you wrote about in the book, was your life dinner. This is a life dinner. So your life dinner is where you kind of talk about like the admin stuff and you check in with your wife. But it's like, if you're not talking about admin with your wife and the mother of your kids, what are you talking about? Because that's all we talk about.
So the life dinner is this idea of creating a fixed monthly date when you talk about some of the bigger picture things in your relationship and in your life. Like, what are your visions for the future? What are the things that you're struggling with? What are the goals? What are the opportunities, the challenges, all of those things? And the idea is that as life gets more chaotic, which it does as you have kids and as you get older, it's hard to just do that on an ongoing basis. Like when my wife and I first got married or when we were dating, we would probably have those conversations just ad hoc. Like as time, you just like catch up when you got home from work or whatever, and you talk about some of those things. When you insert a newborn into the dynamic, when you insert no sleep into the dynamic, when you insert not being able to go out for as many dates into the dynamic, it becomes really hard to actually catch up on some of the bigger picture things. And if you relate it to your own life, how are you supposed to get to where you're trying to go if you don't have a vision for where you're trying to go? And your relationship, you need to have a vision for where you are trying to take your relationship. What are your goals as a couple and as a family? And so the life dinner just creates a fixed cadence for you to do that. There's a handful of question prompts and kind of topics that you can use to guide it. But fundamentally, it should be something fun that you like have at your favorite place on a monthly basis. It's just this fixed dinner that you have and get together. But to touch base on some of those things that are either opportunities or goals for the two of you as a relationship.
It's awesome. I'm definitely going to try to do that, because God knows we need to stop talking about admin stuff. Okay, we are going to wrap up in a sec. I want to quickly, we do these really fun poll questions. So I just want to get your take on one or two, okay?
Hit me.
True or false? Pretending your baby or child is drinking alcohol is cringy and not funny.
False.
Okay. I agree. And I think people need to come up with something funnier.
Yeah.
A guy drops off flowers at your apartment a few days after a second date because you're starting a new job tomorrow. He knows what building you live in, but you never invited him inside. Is this a green flag, a red flag, a deal breaker?
Green flag.
I agree, but it's also kind of like, why do you know? I don't know. It's only been 2 dates and it's cute. It's cute.
Yeah. I just am like, again, it's like, there's a level of thought that went into that.
Yeah, it's cute.
You at
He
least need to
likes you.
explore more.
He likes
Yeah, it's
you.
like he's
better than
he's
the
excited.
opposite.
Exactly.
Mhm. Do you use a baby voice with your wife when you're alone? Yes. Yes, but not often or never.
No. I did, by the way.
Yeah.
told, like, before my son was born, I was like, I'm not using a baby voice with him. I was like, he's a man. I'm going to speak to him like a man.
Yeah.
And then he came out and I was like, Rumi.
Yeah. Of course. Were you a picky eater as a kid?
No.
Is your son?
Yes.
Yeah.
He is.
What can you do?
He exclusively eats like cottage cheese and eggs.
Oh my God, my son loves cottage cheese.
Yeah, I don't
Good
know why.
culture?
It's weird. He doesn't like sweets. He's never had ice cream.
That's so funny.
He's just like savory.
Love it. Can you leave us with a quote or piece of advice? Maybe something from the book.
My favorite quote of all time is the ancient poet Rumi, who said, "As you start to walk on the way appears." As you start to walk on the way appears. The whole idea is you cannot plan for the perfect course from where you're standing. You can't look out into the future and plan the perfect outlook, the perfect relationship, the perfect anything. You have to start walking, and then the way will appear.
That's awesome. I love it. Where can everyone find you, follow you, and read the book?
You can find me at Sahil Bloom on any major platform. The book is available everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, wherever you like to pick up books.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was so great.
Awesome. How was it? Good?
Great.